Gold Thread Studios. Gangnam Nights. Season 1, Episode 4. The Phoenix Circle. Soft rain. A distant subway train. A slow piano melody. A single heartbeat fades in beneath the music. Some families inherit wealth. Some inherit traditions. Some inherit secrets. For 22 years, one letter remained hidden. One father vanished without a trace. One powerful family protected a truth they dared not speak aloud. But secrets have a way of surviving, even after the people who buried them are gone. Tonight, Debbie Seo discovers that her father's disappearance was never an isolated tragedy. It was only the first move in a game that has been unfolding for decades. A game played by people who control corporations, governments, and history itself. And somewhere, hidden beneath the streets of Seoul, someone is waiting for Debbie to uncover the final piece. Because the moment she does, everything changes. Music rises. This is Gangnam Nights. Before we step back into the rain-soaked streets of Seoul, if you're enjoying Gangnam Nights, take a quick second to help the channel grow. Thumbs up, like this video. Speech balloon, share your theories in the comments. Do you think Debbie's father is really alive? Or is someone manipulating everyone from the shadows? Subscribe to Gold Thread Studios and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter of this mystery. Every like, every comment, and every subscription helps us continue bringing original stories like this to life. Now, the rain is falling once again. Let's return to Gangnam. Chapter 1. The Circle Without a Name. Rain remembered everything. It remembered the footsteps that hurried across Gangnam's sidewalks. It remembered whispered promises exchanged beneath umbrellas. It remembered the tears that disappeared before anyone noticed. And tonight, it remembered Debbie Seo. The streets outside Moonbeam Cafe glistened beneath 1,000 reflections. Police lights flashed silently in the distance. The cafe door remained open. Inside, chairs lay overturned. One coffee cup had shattered against the wooden floor. The scent of roasted beans still lingered in the air, mixed now with the unmistakable tension left behind after fear. Debbie stood motionless. The envelope was gone. Director Lee had vanished. And the words whispered moments before the lights returned echoed relentlessly inside her mind. Don't trust anyone. Not even now. She couldn't tell whether the warning had been meant to protect her or to frighten her. Ji-hoon stepped beside her. Neither of them spoke. Some silences demanded respect. Others demanded courage. Outside, a black sedan rolled slowly away from the curb. Neither of them noticed. But someone inside the vehicle smiled. Because Phase 2 had finally begun. The Circle Without a Name. The rain had eased. Not because the storm was over, but because Seoul had learned to breathe again. Blue emergency lights painted the wet pavement outside Moonbeam Cafe. 2 police officers stepped through the entrance. One carefully photographed the overturned chairs. The other questioned the shaken barista. No one mentioned Director Lee. No one admitted seeing him leave. It was as if, for a few impossible seconds, he had simply ceased to exist. Debbie wrapped both hands around the untouched coffee that had long since grown cold. Her fingers still trembled. Not from fear. From disbelief. She had waited 22 years for answers. Instead, she had inherited even larger questions. Ji-hoon watched her quietly. Are you all right? She laughed softly. Not because anything was funny, Because sometimes laughter was the only thing standing between composure and tears. I don't even know who my father is anymore. Her voice cracked. The man I grew up missing. Or the man everyone seems afraid to talk about. Ji-hoon didn't answer immediately. His own certainty had begun to unravel. My father knew. Debbie looked at him. You believe that now? I don't believe it. He exhaled slowly. I know it. Across the Han River, inside the top floor of Kong Holdings, Chairman Kong stood alone. The city stretched endlessly beyond the glass. His reflection looked older tonight. Not because of age. Because of memory. Mr. Choi entered quietly. They've met directorly. The chairman closed his eyes. So, it has begun. Mr. Choi nodded. We can no longer protect her from the truth. Silence settled over the office. Finally, the chairman spoke. I never wanted Debbie to carry her father's burden. Mr. Choi lowered his head. None of us did. Miles away. Beneath Seoul. Far below the subway tunnels. A steel door unlocked. One by one. Figures entered a circular chamber. No names were spoken. Only numbers. Only titles. At the center of the room, a bronze phoenix spread its wings across the marble floor. One chair remained empty. The chair that had belonged to Seo Min-jae. The oldest member looked toward it. He was right. Another voice answered. Which is exactly why he had to disappear. A third voice interrupted. His daughter has opened the letter. The room fell silent. Then, the oldest member gave a single instruction. Bring her to us. Back above ground. Debbie stared out through the rain-speckled cafe window. Something caught her eye. Across the street, a little girl stood beneath a yellow umbrella. She couldn't have been older than 8. She smiled. Then raised a small piece of paper against the glass. 3 simple lines. A circle. A bird. A flame. The phoenix emblem. Before Debbie could react, a passing bus blocked her view. When it moved again, the child was gone. Only the yellow umbrella remained, lying abandoned on the sidewalk. Debbie's heartbeat quickened. Ji-hoon. He turned. What is it? She pointed toward the empty street. I don't think they're hiding anymore. Chapter 2. The woman who remembered too much. There is a dangerous kind of memory. Not the kind that fades with time. The kind that survives. Long after governments rewrite history. Long after newspapers disappear. Long after powerful men convince the world that something never happened. Truth has remarkable patience. It waits. Morning arrived beneath low gray clouds. Seoul moved with its usual rhythm. Subway doors opened and closed. Street vendors prepared hot tteokbokki beneath rising clouds of steam. Office workers hurried across intersections with coffee in one hand and umbrellas in the other. To everyone else, it was another ordinary Monday. To Debbie, nothing would ever feel ordinary again. Sleep had never come. She had spent the night replaying every word Director Lee had spoken. Every glance. Every hesitation. Every unanswered question. The letter was gone. But its weight remained. Somewhere. Someone wanted that letter more than they wanted her alive. Ji-hoon arrived just after sunrise. He carried 2 cups of coffee. Neither of them smiled. I thought you might not have eaten. She accepted the cup. Thank you. The silence between them had changed. Yesterday, they had been strangers connected by coincidence. Today, they were connected by something far more dangerous. The truth. I made a few calls. Debbie looked up. My father kept records. Ji-hoon continued. Not digital. Paper. Hidden. He trusted only one person outside the company. Who? Ji-hoon hesitated. A historian. Professor Yoon Hae-jin. The name appeared ordinary. The woman was anything but. For 30 years, she had quietly restored forgotten government archives. She specialized in documents nobody wanted remembered. Officially, she worked for the National Museum. Unofficially, people inside the intelligence community referred to her by another name. The woman who remembered everything. Her office occupied the forgotten corner of an aging university library. No computers. No television. Only towering shelves. Leather-bound journals. Ancient maps. Boxes filled with handwritten records. Dust floated through narrow beams of afternoon sunlight. History. Lived here. Professor Yoon looked up before either of them spoke. I've been expecting you. Debbie stopped. You know who I am? The elderly woman smiled gently. I knew your father. The room fell silent. Not again. Another person. Another stranger. Another secret. Professor Yoon reached beneath her desk. She carefully placed a faded photograph onto the table. 3 young people smiled at the camera. Chairman Kong. Seo Min-jae. And Director Lee. Friends. Not enemies. Debbie stared. They worked together? Professor Yoon nodded. Long before Kang Holdings became one of the most powerful companies in Korea. Ji-hoon leaned closer. My father never told me this. No. She answered quietly. He wouldn't. The professor slid another object across the table. A bronze coin. On one side. A phoenix. On the other. 3 interlocking circles. Debbie recognized it instantly. The symbol. Professor Yoon nodded. The phoenix circle. She spoke the words almost reluctantly. It wasn't founded as a criminal organization. It began as a promise. Outside, a man wearing a delivery uniform parked his motorcycle across the street. He removed a small camera from inside an insulated food bag, focused the lens through the library window, took 3 photographs, then quietly rode away. He never delivered a single meal. Back inside, Professor Yoon opened a leather journal. Its pages had yellowed with age. She turned to an entry dated April 17, 2004. Her finger rested on a single sentence. She looked directly at Debbie. Everything you're searching for began here. Debbie leaned forward. What happened? The professor closed the journal. I'll tell you. But once you hear it, there is no returning to the life you had before. The old clock in the library struck noon. Outside, the rain began to fall again. Chapter 3. April 17, 2004. History rarely begins on the day people remember. It begins on an ordinary morning, when nobody realizes they are witnessing the first domino fall. Professor Yoon carefully opened the leather journal. The binding creaked with age. Its pages carried the faint scent of ink, old paper, and forgotten promises. She adjusted her glasses, then began to read. April 17, 2004. Today the 4 founders gathered beneath Nam En Mountain. They believe they are building an organization that will protect Korea from corruption. They call themselves the Phoenix Circle. They are idealists. Young enough to believe power can remain honest. Old enough to know the country needs protecting. I fear they are both correct. And terribly wrong. Professor Yoon closed the journal. The Phoenix Circle wasn't created for greed. It was created because corruption had reached every level of government. Debbie frowned. Then what happened? The professor looked toward the rain. The same thing that happens to every organization that survives long enough. Power. Ji-hoon remained silent. He could almost hear his father's voice. Every empire begins with good intentions. There were 4 founders. Professor Yoon reached into a drawer. She removed another photograph. This one had never appeared in any newspaper. 4 young men stood together beneath blooming cherry trees. Chairman Kong. CEO Min-jae. Director Lee. And a 4th man. His face had been carefully burned away. Debbie stared. Who did that? No one knows. Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed. Someone wanted history rewritten. Professor Yoon nodded. And they succeeded. She turned the photograph over. Only 4 handwritten words remained. Protect the 4th founder. Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. Debbie's heartbeat quickened. My father never talked about any of this. He couldn't. Professor Yoon answered gently. Because the 4th founder disappeared before you were born. Outside. The delivery rider had not gone far. He removed his helmet inside a nearby parking garage. His phone vibrated. One message. Did she see the photograph? He typed only one word. Yes. The reply arrived instantly. Proceed. Back inside the library. Professor Yoon unlocked a steel cabinet hidden behind a shelf of history books. She withdrew an old cassette player. The same model Ji-hoon had discovered days earlier. There were 2 recordings. Ji-hoon's eyes widened. My father only found one. I know. I kept the other. She placed the cassette into the player. Pressed play. Static. A deep breath. Then, a familiar voice. Older. Calmer. Filled with quiet conviction. CEO Min-jae. If you are hearing this, then someone has finally begun asking the right questions. Debbie froze. Her father's voice. For the first time in 22 years. She wasn't imagining it. She was hearing him. Real. Alive within the fragile tape. Tears gathered in her eyes before she realized she was crying. Debbie. The room stopped breathing. Ji-hoon looked at her. Professor Yoon slowly lowered her head. Even she had forgotten this part. If you are old enough to understand these words, then I am sorry. Everything I did so you could have a future. The recording suddenly distorted. Static crackled violently. Then, silence. The tape stopped. Professor Yoon frowned. That shouldn't have happened. She removed the cassette. The magnetic ribbon had been sliced cleanly in half. Not by age. By design. Someone had sabotaged the recording. Years before. A sharp knock echoed through the library. 3 knocks. Slow. Evenly spaced. Nobody moved. Professor Yoon's face drained of color. She whispered only 4 words. They found us already. The doorknob turned. Very slowly. And the library fell silent. Chapter 4. The Keeper of the 4th Name. Fear. has a sound. Not a scream. Not a gunshot. Not even footsteps. Sometimes. It is nothing more than a doorknob turning. When no one should know where you are. Nobody moved. Professor Yoon's hand remained frozen on the cassette player. Ji-hoon instinctively stepped in front of Debbie. The old library seemed to hold its breath. Outside. The rain tapped gently against the stained glass windows. Inside. Time slowed. The doorknob stopped turning. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Then. Another knock. Soft. Patient. As though whoever stood outside knew they had all the time in the world. Professor Yoon whispered, "There's a rear archive." Ji-hoon understood immediately. "Go." She shook her head. "I can't. They're here for me." "No. They're here for all of us." Debbie grabbed her hand. "We're leaving together." The elderly professor smiled. For the first time, Debbie saw not an academic, but a woman who had spent decades carrying secrets too heavy for one lifetime. "You remind me of your father." The knocking stopped. Complete silence. Then, a calm voice echoed through the old wooden door. "Professor Yoon, we're not here to hurt you. We only want the journal." Ji-hoon looked toward the entrance. They know exactly what they're looking for. Professor Yoon quietly reached beneath the desk. Instead of a weapon, she removed a small brass key. Its bow was shaped like a phoenix in flight. She placed it in Debbie's palm. "It opens box 4. Debbie frowned. "Box 4. Professor Yoon nodded. "Seoul Central Station. Platform 12. Left luggage. Locker 417. Ji-hoon memorized every word. "What's inside?" Professor Yoon looked directly into Debbie's eyes. "The only evidence proving your father never betrayed anyone." The room became impossibly still. Then, the front door burst open. 3 men entered. Dark suits. Black umbrellas. No expressions. No hesitation. The tallest stepped forward. He bowed respectfully. "Professor." She remained seated. I wondered how long it would take. The man's eyes shifted toward Debbie. "So, this is Seo Min-jae's daughter." His voice carried neither hatred nor kindness, only curiosity. As if he were examining a historical artifact, Ji-hoon stepped between them. "You'll leave." The man smiled. "Chairman Kang's son. We've been expecting you." Debbie noticed something immediately. Every one of the men wore the same silver cufflink. A phoenix. Encircled by 3 rings. Not jewelry. A uniform. The leader folded his umbrella. "We're willing to make this simple. Give us Professor Yoon's journal." And everyone walks away. Professor Yoon laughed quietly. "You've been saying that for 20 years. And every person who believed you disappeared." One of the younger men shifted nervously. His eyes briefly met Debbie's. Something unexpected happened. He looked away. Ashamed. Not everyone in the room wanted to be there. The leader noticed. Without turning his head, he said, "Agent Park. Compose yourself." The young man straightened instantly. "Yes, sir." But Debbie had already seen it. Doubt. Just for a heartbeat. One member of the Phoenix Circle had questioned his orders. Professor Yoon slowly stood. Though nearly 70 years old, she carried herself with remarkable dignity. "You boys keep asking the wrong question." The leader tilted his head. "Oh. You keep asking where the journal is. She smiled. When you should be asking, who already has it? Every face in the room changed, except Debbie's, because she didn't yet realize. The journal had been slipped into her canvas satchel moments earlier. Professor Yoon had never intended to protect the book. She intended to protect the woman destined to finish its story. Outside, a black luxury sedan rolled quietly to the curb. The rear passenger door opened. An elderly man stepped out, umbrella in hand. Mr. Choi. He looked toward the library windows, then spoke softly into his phone. Mr. Kang. They've arrived before we did. A long pause. I understand. He closed the phone, straightened his tie, and walked toward the entrance. For the first time in 22 years, Chairman Kang's oldest friend was about to reveal whose side he had truly been on all along. Chapter 5. The Death of Mr. Choi. Every family has someone history forgets, not because they lacked courage, but because they never asked for recognition. They simply did what had to be done. For 22 years, Mr. Choi had lived in the shadows. Tonight, the shadows finally stepped into the light. The old library doors swung open. Rain drifted inside on a cool evening breeze. Every eye turned. The three Phoenix Circle operatives instinctively stepped aside. Not out of fear. Out of respect. Mr. Choi entered quietly. Umbrella folded neatly beneath one arm. His charcoal overcoat glistened with rain. His silver hair was damp. His expression unchanged. Calm. Measured. Unreadable. The leader of the Phoenix Circle smiled. So, the chairman sends his butler. Mr. Choi returned the smile. I retired from being a butler many years ago. Silence. I simply chose not to correct people. Ji-hoon frowned. You know him? Mr. Choi looked toward him. I've known every person in this room. Longer than you've been alive. Debbie watched the older men carefully. There was something different about the way they looked at one another. Not enemies. Not friends. Survivors. People bound together by decisions made decades earlier. The Phoenix Circle leader bowed respectfully. It has been many years. Mr. Choi. It has. I hoped never to see you again. So did I. Nobody moved. The room felt suspended between two generations. One carrying secrets. The other demanding answers. Mr. Choi slowly removed a pair of white gloves. Folded them carefully. Placed them into his coat pocket. Only then did he speak. You frightened enough innocent people. We're leaving. The leader laughed softly. I don't believe that's your decision anymore. No? No. He nodded toward Debbie. She belongs to the circle now. Debbie stepped forward. I belong to no one. The room fell silent. Mr. Choi smiled. Very slightly. So much like your father. The leader sighed. I was hoping to avoid this. He raised one hand. Instantly, the two younger operatives moved. Not toward Mr. Choi. Toward Debbie. Ji-hoon reacted first. He caught the nearest man's wrist before he could reach her. The second operative lunged. A chair crashed across the wooden floor. Books tumbled from nearby shelves. The library erupted into chaos. Mr. Choi never hurried. He simply walked forward. One precise movement. The first attacker found himself flat on the floor. Another reached for him. Mr. Choi redirected the man's momentum with effortless precision. The attacker collided with a bookshelf. Hundreds of history books rained down around him. Debbie stared. Mr. Choi. Ji-hoon finished the sentence. You were never just my father's secretary. Mr. Choi adjusted his glasses. I had other responsibilities. Across the room, Professor Yoon quietly retrieved another leather journal. Not the first. A second one. Hidden beneath loose floorboards. She slipped it into Debbie's satchel beside the brass key. Neither Phoenix Circle member noticed. But Agent Park did. His eyes widened. For a brief second, their gazes met. Debbie expected him to shout. Instead, he looked away. Deliberately. He had seen everything and chosen silence. The leader noticed Agent Park's hesitation. His voice became cold. You've forgotten your oath. No, sir. Then complete your assignment. Agent Park looked toward Debbie again. She saw conflict written across his face. Duty. Or conscience. For the first time, someone inside the Phoenix Circle was beginning to question the organization itself. A deafening crack echoed through the library. Everyone froze. Not gunfire. The sound of ancient wood giving way. One of the towering archive shelves slowly tilted. Thousands of books cascaded toward the center of the room. Mr. Choi shouted. Move. Ji-hoon grabbed Debbie's hand. Professor Yoon stumbled backward. The massive shelf crashed to the floor. Dust exploded into the air. Visibility vanished. Shouts echoed through the darkness. When the dust finally began to settle, the library had changed. The Phoenix Circle leader was gone. Agent Park was gone. And so was Professor Yoon. Only her broken glasses remained on the wooden floor. Debbie picked them up with trembling hands. No. Mr. Choi looked toward the shattered doorway. His voice was quieter than anyone had ever heard it. They didn't come for the journals. They came for her. Outside, the rain became a downpour. Far above the city, lightning split the Seoul sky. Somewhere in the darkness, Professor Yoon opened her eyes. She wasn't alone. A familiar voice whispered from the shadows. I'm sorry it took me 22 years to come back. Chapter 6. The Ghost Beneath Seoul. Some people disappear because they are taken. Others because they choose to vanish. And then there are the rare few who disappear so someone else may live. The library had become a battlefield. Ancient books lay scattered across the wooden floor. Broken shelves leaned against cracked walls. Rain blew through shattered windows. Dust floated through shafts of afternoon light. Professor Yoon was gone. Debbie refused to move. She stared at the broken glasses in her trembling hand. No. Her voice barely escaped. No. Ji-hoon stepped closer. Debbie. She pulled away. They took her because of me. They came here because I asked questions. Mr. Choi's voice remained calm. No. They came because she finally chose to answer them. Outside, sirens approached. Not police. Private security. Black SUVs surrounded the university grounds with practiced precision. Men in tailored suits exited one after another. Each wore an earpiece. Each scanned the rooftops. Each carried themselves like soldiers, not bodyguards. Ji-hoon frowned. My father. Mr. Choi nodded. He sent everyone. He knows. He has always known. Inside Kong Holdings, Chairman Kang stood before the enormous window overlooking the Han River. His office remained silent, untouched. On his desk rested a single photograph. For young men. One future. One promise. One betrayal. He picked up the photograph. His thumb rested over the burned face. 22 years. And he still couldn't bring himself to look. His private phone rang. Only 3 people possessed that number. He answered immediately. Is she safe? Mr. Choi replied quietly. For now. And Professor Yoon? A long silence. We were too late. The chairman closed his eyes. Another promise. Broken. Across Seoul. Beneath the old railway tunnels no longer marked on any official map, Professor Yoon slowly regained consciousness. The room smelled of damp stone, iron, and age. A single lantern illuminated the underground chamber. She attempted to sit upright. Someone spoke from the darkness. You always were difficult to capture. She froze. That voice. Impossible. A man stepped into the light. His beard carried streaks of gray. His shoulders had aged beneath years of hardship. But his eyes had not changed. Steady. Kind. Unyielding. Professor Yoon whispered. No. Tears filled her eyes. It can't be. The man smiled gently. I've missed your terrible tea. She began to cry. Min-jae? Seo Min-jae was alive. Miles away. Debbie suddenly stopped walking. She turned toward the skyline. Ji-hoon looked at her. What is it? She couldn't explain. Only. For the first time in her life, she felt something she had never experienced before. Hope. Not certainty. Not proof. Just hope. As though somewhere, someone she loved, had just spoken her name, deep beneath Seoul. Seo Min-jae walked toward an enormous steel vault. He entered a 6-digit code. The massive door slowly opened. Inside, rows of shelves stretched into darkness. Thousands of files, photographs, government records, corporate ledgers. Every secret the Phoenix Circle had buried, protected, catalogued, waiting. Professor Yoon stared in disbelief. You kept everything? Min-jae nodded. I couldn't expose them. Not then. But someday. He looked toward the ceiling, toward the city above them. My daughter will. At that exact moment, Debbie reached into her satchel. The brass key Professor Yoon had given her was warm. Not from the weather. Not from her hand. As if, after 22 years, it had finally found its rightful owner. She turned it over. Tiny words were engraved along its edge. Words too small to notice before. The first lock opens the last truth. Ji-hoon leaned closer. The first lock. Mr. Choi's expression changed. For the first time in decades, the unshakable old man looked genuinely alarmed. There isn't just one locker. He looked at Debbie. There are 7. The rain intensified. Lightning flashed across the Seoul skyline. Somewhere beneath the city, a vault full of forgotten history waited. And somewhere above it, the Phoenix Circle realized their greatest secret was no longer buried. Chapter 7. Locker 417. The truth rarely arrives all at once. It reveals itself One key. One door. One impossible choice. At a time. Rain continued to fall over Seoul. The city glowed beneath ribbons of reflected neon. Cars whispered across wet pavement. Pedestrians hurried beneath umbrellas. No one noticed three figures walking through the evening crowd. Debbie. Ji-hoon. Mr. Choi. Each carrying a different burden. Each knowing. There was no turning back. Seoul Station stood before them like a city within a city. Thousands of travelers crossed its polished floors. Announcements echoed through cavernous halls. Suitcases rolled across marble. Children laughed. Business travelers hurried toward departing trains. To everyone else, it was another ordinary evening. To Debbie, it felt like walking into history. Mr. Choi stopped beside platform 12. He checked his watch. 7:43. Ji-hoon frowned. Does the time matter? It always mattered to your father. They continued deeper into the station. Past commuters. Past convenience stores. Past forgotten corridors few passengers ever used. Finally, they reached an aging wall of left luggage lockers. Most stood empty. Some had rusted shut years ago. Only one remained untouched. 417. Debbie slowly removed the brass key. Her hand trembled. Not from fear. From anticipation. 22 years. Everything seemed to lead. Here. She inserted the key. It fit perfectly. The lock clicked. Nothing happened. Ji-hoon looked confused. It didn't open. Mr. Choi smiled faintly. Because your father never trusted a single lock. He pointed downward. Look again. Debbie lowered her eyes. Hidden beneath the handle, almost invisible, was another keyhole. Much smaller. The first lock. Ji-hoon whispered. Opens the last truth. Mr. Choi nodded. You've only opened the first. Before anyone could speak. Every light inside the corridor flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. A maintenance worker pushed a cleaning cart toward them. Head down. Whistling softly. Nothing unusual. Until he passed locker 417. Without slowing. He quietly slipped a folded train ticket into Debbie's coat pocket. Then continued walking. Never looking back. Debbie reached into her pocket. The ticket contained no destination. Only a handwritten message. You are being watched. She looked up immediately. The maintenance worker had disappeared into the crowd. Ji-hoon's instincts sharpened. Mr. Choi. I know. The older man had already begun scanning the station. Something wasn't right. Too many people stood perfectly still. A woman pretending to read a newspaper. A man polishing already clean glasses. A couple holding empty shopping bags. None of them looked at Debbie. But all of them watched her. The Phoenix Circle. Mr. Choi spoke so quietly only Ji-hoon heard. They've surrounded us. Across the station. Inside a second-floor cafe. Agent Park lowered a pair of binoculars. His orders were simple. Observe. Report. Do not intervene. Yet every instinct told him. Those orders would soon change. His phone vibrated. One message. Retrieve the journal. Eliminate witnesses if necessary. Agent Park stared at the screen. His thumb hovered over the confirmation button. Instead, he locked the phone. For the second time, he disobeyed. Back at locker 417. Debbie noticed something carved into the metal beneath the second keyhole. Not words. Coordinates. Professor Yoon hadn't sent her here merely to retrieve something. She had sent her to begin a journey. Ji-hoon photographed the engraving. His face lost all color. These aren't station coordinates. What are they? He looked at Mr. Choi. They point to. Mr. Choi finished the sentence. The original headquarters of the Phoenix Circle. At that exact moment, a train thundered into platform 12. The roar filled the station. Wind rushed through the corridor. And in the chaos, someone brushed past Debbie. A whisper. Barely audible. Close enough to feel. Don't open the second lock here. She spun around. No one. Only thousands of strangers disappearing into the moving crowd. Far beneath the city, Seo Min-jae stood before a wall covered in maps. One red light blinked. Then another. He closed his eyes. They found locker 417. Professor Yoon looked at him. What will she find? Min-jae smiled sadly. Not what she expects. He reached toward a weathered photograph of a little girl laughing beneath cherry blossoms. His daughter. The last time he had seen her, she was 4 years old. Now, she was unknowingly walking toward the greatest secret he had ever buried, and the greatest sacrifice he had ever made. Chapter 8. The second lock. Not every door is meant to be opened. Some exist to test whether the person holding the key is ready for what waits beyond it. The crowd swallowed the stranger. One heartbeat. He was there. The next. He had vanished into the endless tide of travelers. Debbie turned in every direction. Nothing. Only strangers rushing toward trains. Only ordinary lives. Moving through an extraordinary moment. Ji-hoon placed a steady hand on her shoulder. What did he say? She kept her eyes on the moving crowd. He told me not to open the second lock. Mr. Choi's expression darkened. He wasn't threatening you. He was warning you. The old man glanced toward the security cameras mounted high above the station. They're watching. Not just the Phoenix Circle. Someone else. Without another word, Mr. Choi removed his phone. He typed only 4 words. Proceed to safe house. Seconds later, his screen displayed a single reply. Already prepared. Ji-hoon looked at locker 417 once more. If we leave now, will we lose whatever is inside? Mr. Choi shook his head. No. Your father designed these locks. They don't reward impatience. Debbie gently ran her fingers across the second keyhole. It was unlike any lock she had ever seen. Not brass. Not steel. A dull black metal. Almost warm. Tiny symbols circled its edge. Not Korean. Not Chinese. Not Japanese. Older. Far older. Professor Yoon had recognized them immediately. She simply hadn't had time to explain. A quiet voice interrupted. You shouldn't touch it. The 3 turned. Standing beside a vending machine was an elderly janitor. Blue uniform. Gray cap. Kind eyes. He pushed a worn cleaning cart. Nothing remarkable. Except Mr. Choi bowed deeply. Far deeper than anyone had ever seen him bow. Teacher. The old janitor smiled. I wondered how long it would take you to recognize me. Ji-hoon looked confused. Mr. Choi. Who is he? The old man answered before Mr. Choi could. My name hasn't mattered for many years. But once. I trained the four founders. Silence. Debbie felt the station disappear around her. The roar of arriving trains faded. Even the announcement seemed distant. The four founders? The janitor nodded. I taught them to survive. I never imagined they would one day build something capable of destroying itself. He looked toward locker 417. His gentle smile vanished. They're late. Ji-hoon frowned. Who? Instead of answering, the old man pointed upward. A maintenance drone slowly hovered beneath the station ceiling. Small. Silent. Almost invisible. Its camera rotated. Stopped. Locked directly onto Debbie. Mr. Choi reacted instantly. Move. The drone emitted a piercing electronic tone. Every security camera inside the station suddenly pivoted. Not randomly. All at once. Toward Debbie. Toward Ji-hoon. Toward locker 417. Passengers continued walking. Oblivious. Only 4 people understood what had just happened. Someone had activated the station's surveillance network. Across the city. Inside an underground command center. Dozens of monitors flickered to life. A woman dressed in black stood before the largest screen. Elegant. Poised. Her silver hair was tied neatly behind her head. She watched Debbie's face in perfect silence. Then spoke. So, Seo Min-jae's daughter finally found the first lock. A young analyst turned nervously. Should we deploy the retrieval team? The woman smiled. No. Let her open the second lock. The analyst looked confused. But what if she discovers the archive? The woman's smile widened. She won't. Because the second lock isn't a lock. Back inside Seoul Station, the elderly janitor gently took Debbie's hand. He pressed something into her palm. A second key. Unlike the first. This one was made of polished obsidian. Black as midnight. It felt impossibly cold. He leaned close enough that only Debbie could hear. When the second door opens, don't believe the first person you see. Before she could ask what he meant, a train thundered into the station. The rush of air swept through the corridor. For only a second, everyone looked away. When they looked back, the old janitor was gone. Only the abandoned cleaning cart remained, and hanging from its handle was an old photograph for young men laughing beneath cherry blossoms. This time, the fourth founder's face had not been burned away. Debbie reached for the photograph. Her breath caught. The fourth founder looked exactly like her. Chapter 9. The face in the photograph. Sometimes, the greatest mystery isn't discovering a stranger. It's discovering yourself. Debbie's fingers trembled as she lifted the faded photograph. The station around her dissolved into distant echoes. Train announcements became muffled. Footsteps faded. Even the rain beyond the glass roof seemed to disappear. Only the photograph remained. For young founders stood shoulder to shoulder beneath blooming cherry blossoms. Chairman Kang. Seo Min-jae. Director Lee. And the fourth founder. Debbie couldn't breathe. The resemblance wasn't ordinary. It was unmistakable. The same eyes. The same smile. The same stubborn tilt of the chin. Only older. Older by nearly 30 years. Ji-hoon looked over her shoulder. His expression froze. That can't be. Mr. Choi slowly removed his glasses. For the first time since Debbie had known him, his hands shook. I prayed. This photograph had been destroyed. Debbie looked from the photograph to Mr. Choi. Who is she? Silence. Long enough to become painful. Finally, Mr. Choi answered. Her name was Seo Hannah. The name meant nothing to Debbie, yet somehow it felt familiar, like a melody remembered from childhood. She wasn't your sister. Mr. Choi continued quietly. She wasn't your aunt. She wasn't your mother. Debbie frowned. Then who is she? Mr. Choi looked at the photograph one last time. The woman who gave you your name. The world stopped. My name? You were never supposed to be called Debbie. Ji-hoon looked at him. What? Mr. Choi nodded slowly. Your father chose another name. He told only 4 people. After everything happened, your mother changed it. Debbie felt the floor disappear beneath her. What was it? Mr. Choi hesitated, as though speaking the name aloud might awaken something better left sleeping. Finally, he whispered, Debbie. The sound lingered. Not unfamiliar. Not strange. Comfortable. Like a forgotten part of herself quietly returning home. She closed her eyes. Somewhere deep inside, the name felt right. Across the station, Agent Park watched from the upper level. His orders continued flashing across his phone. Recover photograph. Recover journal. Neutralize witnesses. He deleted the message without replying. Then quietly descended the escalator. Not toward Debbie. Toward the surveillance control room. Inside, 3 technicians monitored every camera in Seoul station. One looked up. Can I help you? Agent Park smiled politely. I'm here to repair your security feed. Before anyone questioned him, every monitor went black. One by one. The station had just become invisible. For exactly 5 minutes. Back near locker 417. Mr. Choi folded the photograph. We have to leave. Ji-hoon agreed immediately. Now. But Debbie remained motionless. Her eyes fixed on the face of Seo Hannah. I've seen her before. Both men turned. Where? I don't know. But I've seen her. Not in a dream. Not in a photograph. Somewhere real. Somewhere recent. Then it came back. The little girl beneath the yellow umbrella. Outside Moonbeam Cafe. The child hadn't been holding a drawing. She had been holding this photograph. Only folded. Only for a moment. Debbie's heartbeat quickened. She wanted me to recognize her. Before anyone could respond, the obsidian key in Debbie's pocket vibrated. Once. Twice. Then stopped. Ji-hoon frowned. Keys don't do that. Mr. Choi's face turned pale. No. They've activated it. A low mechanical rumble echoed beneath the station floor. Passengers looked around in confusion. Far below, something enormous had begun to move. Hidden gears. Untouched for decades. Were turning once again. Somewhere beneath platform 12. The second lock had already begun to open. Deep underground. Seo Min-jae stood before the sealed vault. He heard the ancient mechanism engage. His eyes closed. So, they found it. Professor Yoon looked at him. What happens now? He smiled sadly. The past comes looking for us. As the vault lights flickered to life, a forgotten elevator, hidden beneath Seoul Station for 22 years, began its slow ascent toward the surface. Inside, someone was waiting. Someone who had been waiting longer than Debbie had been alive. Chapter 10. The hidden platform. Some places are erased from maps, not because they never existed, but because someone needed the world to forget them. The vibration beneath platform 12 grew stronger. Passengers stopped walking. Coffee trembled inside paper cups. Electronic departure boards flickered. Nobody understood why. Only Debbie, Ji-hoon, and Mr. Choi knew. Something buried beneath Seoul had awakened. The obsidian key became warmer in Debbie's hand. Not hot. Alive. Its polished surface reflected the station lights. Then, without warning, a faint blue line appeared along its edge. Ji-hoon stared. It wasn't there before. Mr. Choi answered quietly. It only appears when the second path has opened. The mechanical rumbling stopped. An eerie silence settled over the station. Then, a section of the tiled floor shifted. Not enough for ordinary commuters to notice. Just enough for Mr. Choi. There. He pointed toward an aging maintenance door hidden behind a row of vending machines. For decades, everyone had walked past it. No one had ever truly seen it. Agent Park emerged from the crowd. He was breathing hard. I disabled the surveillance network. Ji-hoon instinctively stepped between him and Debbie. You expect us to trust you? No. Agent Park answered honestly. I expect you to survive. He handed Mr. Choi a security badge. You have less than 4 minutes. After that, the Phoenix Circle will regain control of every camera in the station. Mr. Choi studied him. You've made your choice. Agent Park nodded. I made it the moment I saw the order to kill an innocent woman. Mr. Choi extended his hand. Then welcome back. Ji-hoon frowned. Back? Agent Park looked surprised. You never told him? Mr. Choi sighed. I was hoping I never would. Without another word, Mr. Choi pressed the badge against the maintenance door. Nothing happened. Then Debbie instinctively placed the obsidian key beside it. A soft chime echoed. The lock released. The heavy steel door swung inward. Cold air drifted out. It smelled of damp concrete, machine oil, and time. A staircase spiraled downward into darkness. No emergency lights. No signs. No indication it existed. Only silence. Debbie switched on the flashlight from her phone. The beam disappeared into the blackness below. How far does it go? Mr. Choi answered without looking. Far enough to disappear from history. The four descended. Every footstep echoed through the narrow shaft. 30 steps. 50. 100. The sounds of Seoul slowly vanished. No trains. No announcements. No voices. Only dripping water. At the bottom, the staircase opened into an abandoned underground platform. Dust covered everything. Rusted tracks stretched endlessly into darkness. An old station sign, barely visible beneath decades of grime. Read. Phoenix Line. Ji-hoon whispered. There was never a Phoenix Line. There was. Mr. Choi replied. It simply stopped existing. Along the platform wall hung faded photographs. construction crews, government officials, business leaders, and standing quietly among them, the four founders, all smiling, all believing they were building something that would protect the nation. Debbie traced her fingers across Seo Min-jae's face. He still believed. Mr. Choi nodded. That photograph was taken 3 days before everything fell apart. A low whistle echoed through the tunnel. Not wind. A train. Impossible. These tracks had been abandoned for more than 20 years. Yet the sound grew louder. Closer. Headlights slowly emerged from the darkness. An old silver subway train rolled silently toward the forgotten platform. No destination displayed. No passengers visible. It stopped precisely in front of them. The doors slid open. Empty. Waiting. On the driver's console rested a single envelope. Across the front, written in familiar handwriting, were 5 words. For my daughter, Debin. Debbie couldn't move. Her father hadn't just prepared for this day. He had planned it. 22 years ago, the train had been waiting. For her. Far away. Inside the Phoenix Circle Command Center, the silver-haired woman watched the live tracking screen. A green light began moving. Her smile disappeared. They found the train. An analyst looked up. Should we stop them? She slowly shook her head. No. They've already crossed the point where anyone can stop them. The screen flashed one final message. Phoenix Line, reactivated. For the first time in 22 years, the hidden railway beneath Seoul was alive again. Chapter 11. The Last Train. Some journeys are measured in miles. Others are measured in the truths you cannot unknow. No one moved. The old silver train waited in absolute silence. Its polished steel reflected the dim platform lights. No conductor. No passengers. No destination. Only one envelope. Resting on the driver's console. Debbie took the first step. Then another. The sound of her footsteps echoed through the abandoned station. Every instinct told Ji-hoon to stop her. Instead, he walked beside her. Whatever waited beyond those doors, they would face it together. Mr. Choi remained on the platform, watching, listening, remembering. This train, he whispered, was Seo Min-jae's final contingency. Agent Park looked confused. It still runs. Mr. Choi smiled sadly. It never stopped. Debbie climbed aboard. The air inside smelled faintly of cedar wood and machine oil. Nothing had gathered dust. Nothing showed signs of age. It was as though someone had been maintaining it. Every single week. For 22 years. She reached for the envelope. Her hands trembled. Across the front, her father's handwriting remained unmistakable. For my daughter, Debin. Not Debbie. Debbie. The name settled into her heart with surprising warmth. For the first time, it no longer felt unfamiliar. It felt like home. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter and a photograph. The photograph showed a smiling little girl sitting on a man's shoulders beneath blooming cherry blossoms. She recognized herself immediately. She could not remember the day, but her father had remembered every second. The letter began simply, My Debin. If you have found this train, then you have already become far braver than I ever wanted you to be. By now, you have learned that I lied. Not because I wanted to, Because telling you the truth would have killed you. If you are reading these words, then someone failed to stop you. For that, I am grateful. Tears blurred Debbie's vision. Ji-hoon quietly stood beside her. He never interrupted. Some conversations belong only to a father and his daughter. Outside the train, Mr. Choi suddenly looked toward the tunnel. His expression hardened. They're coming. Agent Park listened carefully. At first, he heard nothing. Then, boots. Many of them. Marching. Disciplined. Steady. Phoenix Circle operatives. There isn't enough time. Mr. Choi spoke calmly. The train leaves in 90 seconds. Ji-hoon looked through the open doorway. What about you? The old man smiled. My job was never to board the train. Debbie continued reading. There are 7 locks. Each protects one truth. Never open them out of order. The first teaches you where to look. The second teaches you whom to trust. The third will ask you what you are willing to sacrifice. If you reach the 7th, you will finally understand why I disappeared. The station lights flickered. Once. Twice. A deep mechanical hum echoed beneath the tracks. The train had awakened. Agent Park drew a sharp breath. They're here. From the darkness beyond the platform, dozens of flashlights appeared. White beams cut through the tunnel. Voices shouted commands. Secure every exit. No one leaves. Ji-hoon instinctively stepped in front of Debbie. The train doors remained open. Waiting. Almost. Patiently. Mr. Choi reached into his coat. Not for a weapon. For an old pocket watch. He pressed its crown. Deep inside the tunnel, an ancient bell rang. 1, 2, 3 times. The entire platform began to vibrate. What did you just do? Ji-hoon asked. Mr. Choi looked toward the approaching operatives. I woke the station. The forgotten platform suddenly transformed. Massive steel barriers rose from the floor. Heavy blast doors slammed shut behind the advancing Phoenix Circle team. The tunnel split into 3 separate passages. Hidden track switches shifted with thunderous force. The station itself had become a maze. The train conductor's cabin, empty only moments before, was no longer empty. A figure now sat quietly behind the controls. Dark cap. Long coat. Hands resting on the levers. The face remained hidden in shadow. Slowly, the figure looked toward Debbie. Then, with a gentle nod, placed one gloved hand on the throttle. The train lurched forward. The doors closed. Outside, Mr. Choi stood alone on the platform. He smiled. Not because he wasn't afraid. Because he had kept a promise. 22 years in the making. As the train disappeared into the darkness, he whispered words only he could hear. Take her home, Min-jae. Chapter 12. The Conductor. Some promises are so important. They survive the people who made them. Some journeys begin long before the first passenger steps aboard. And some trains are driven by ghosts. The Phoenix line slipped silently into the darkness. There was no screech of steel, no rattling wheels, only a low mechanical hum, echoing through forgotten tunnels beneath Seoul. Debbie stood motionless. Her father's letter remained open in her trembling hands. Outside the window, the abandoned platform disappeared into shadow. The last person she saw was Mr. Choi, standing perfectly still, watching the train disappear. He did not wave. He simply bowed. A promise fulfilled. Inside the carriage, warm amber lights flickered overhead. Unlike the station, everything inside the train looked remarkably well preserved. Mahogany wall panels gleamed softly. Old brass luggage racks stretched above velvet seats. Each carriage looked less like a subway, and more like an elegant railway from another era. It was beautiful. Almost impossibly so. Ji-hoon slowly looked around. My father knew about this. It wasn't a question. Agent Park nodded quietly. He wasn't the only one. Debbie couldn't stop staring toward the front of the train, toward the conductor's cabin. The silhouette hadn't moved. Still. Something about the man's posture felt familiar. Not recognizable. Comforting. The train rounded a gentle curve. For just a second, light from an old maintenance tunnel illuminated the cabin. Debbie caught a glimpse. Gray hair. Strong shoulders. A profile that looked heartbreakingly familiar. Her heart stopped. Dad. The word escaped before she realized she'd spoken. The conductor never turned. The light vanished. Only darkness remained. Ji-hoon looked at her. What did you see? She couldn't answer, because she wasn't sure whether she had seen a man, or simply wanted to. The train began slowing. Not stopping. Slowing. Ahead. A station emerged. Unlike the one they had left, this platform was spotless. Every light worked. Fresh flowers decorated polished stone columns. Classical music drifted softly through hidden speakers. It looked as though people had been expecting guests. A sign hung above the platform. Station 1. Truth. The doors opened. Nobody boarded. Nobody left. Instead, a young woman stepped out from behind one of the columns. She wore a cream-colored coat. Dark hair rested neatly over one shoulder. She couldn't have been older than 30. She smiled when she saw Debbie. Not politely. Affectionately. As though greeting someone she'd waited years to meet. Hello. Her voice was warm. Debbie. Again. The name. No hesitation. No uncertainty. She spoke it the way her father once had. Debbie slowly stepped onto the platform. Who are you? The woman's smile faded. My name is Seoul. Silence. Impossible. Mr. Choi had spoken of Seoul as someone from the past. The photograph had been decades old. Yet the woman standing before her looked scarcely older than Ji-hoon. Debbie's breathing became shallow. That's impossible. I know. The woman answered gently. Which is exactly why we're running out of time. Behind them. The train doors remained open. The conductor still hadn't moved. Agent Park quietly scanned the station. No cameras. No guards. Ji-hoon frowned. That's what worries me. Seoul reached into her coat. She removed a leather notebook. Its cover bore the familiar phoenix emblem. But beneath it, another symbol. A golden thread. Woven through a circle. Debbie had never seen it before. What is that? Hannah looked at the emblem for a long moment, then smiled. The symbol your father created. He believed every life is connected. Every choice. Every sacrifice. Every generation. By one thread. She gently placed the notebook into Debbie's hands. This belongs to you. A low horn echoed through the station. Not from the train. From somewhere much deeper underground. The conductor finally stood. Slowly. He removed his cap. He still did not turn around. But his voice filled the station. Calm. Steady. Familiar.
Debbie.
The journey begins now. Debbie's eyes filled with tears. Not because she recognized the face. She hadn't seen it yet. She recognized the voice. The same voice from the cassette. The same voice from the letter. The voice she had waited 22 years to hear. Seo Min-jae. The train doors began to close. The conductor reached for the controls. For the first time since she was 4 years old, a daughter stood only a few steps away from the father she believed she had lost forever. End of episode 4. Coming next, episode 5. The Seventh Thread. Some reunions heal the past. Others awaken a war that has been waiting for decades.